The following podcast is intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Alone in the Realm, a premium solo TTRPG podcast. I'm DV, your humble GM and adventurer. Alone in the Realm is a podcast where we let the dice drive the story, and we are along for the ride. No character is beyond death, and we let the dice lay where they fall. Ironsworn playing God Apothecary, Episode 17. Last episode, we rid the land of an iron revenant, found out we needed to cast a magical acorn into the sea to destroy a curse, our friend and mentor Mel was killed, and we traveled back to Axcrag only to be attacked there by a wrathful haunt. So, in all, things were accomplished but at a great cost. In the end, we are still in a bad situation. Currently our health is at 1 out of 5. Our spirit is at 0 out of 5, and we have the shaken condition. Our supply is at 3 out of 5, and our momentum is at 2. We failed in our sojourn in Axcrag, so we're still shaken. Child Etta wants to continue to pursue food for the settlements in the havens, and has asked for a volunteer to assist Dog. So, we'll roll up an NPC to act as our companion for the next portion of our quests, of which there are 2. Our first quest is find a food supply for the havens. We're currently at 6 out of 10 progress. And cast the dark acorn into the sea. We're currently at 0 out of 10 progress. We'll roll up a new NPC to act as our companion in the next portion. In the Ironsmith Expanded Oracles, I roll a 4 on the D6 and a 77 on the D100, and I get Livestock Farmer. For the character disposition, I roll a 1 on the D6 and a 73 on the D100, and I got Demanding. For the character goal, I rolled a 1 on the D6 and a 95 on the D100, and I got Resolve a Dispute. I have an idea that he has a little problem with Dog's leadership because of the alchemy history. I roll a description of 3 and 52, which is Shy, and 2 and 7, which is Ironsworn. I rolled up his name as Ear. A grizzled middle-aged Irelander steps forward. He avoids eye contact with Dog, but issues his intent to assist. Child Etta accepts his vow and introduces him to Dog. Dog, meet your new traveling companion, Ear. He's a livestock farmer from here in Axcrag. I trust his son can watch his herd while he assists? She asks the question, and Ear nods. Very good. Dog will lead the expedition, but Ear's wisdom and guidance will surely help bring it to fruition. Dog reaches out his hand to shake Ear's. The man looks at the outstretched palm for only a fraction of a second longer than is socially acceptable, then grasps it in a firm handshake. You look like hell, son, he says in a gravelly voice. Dog issues a weak smile and nods. Yes, I've been through hell. We'll gather our things and make for Valemark first. I need to check in on my aging grandparents there. A flicker of something crosses Ear's face, but he quickly stills it. Very good. I know of a place near Valemark we can look for hunting grounds. I often go there when pushing my herds to the coast for sale. I'm familiar with a village on the Ragged Coast we can visit as well, both for foodstuffs and to book passage on a ship. His voice is hard and firm, but he seems to accept Dog as the leader of the team. Once we test our bond with him, but we may end up adding him as a permanent companion, we'll see. But right now we're going to take a new asset, Ironsworn. Before the assembled children, Edda speaks up. In honor of his services thus far, we shall award Dog with a customary Child of Light cloak and tabard. May he wear it well, and he can continue to serve the light. The assembled children gave a light applause. Edda brought Dog to the local tailor and found one of the uniforms that fit him well enough. It was a nice change from his own travel-worn clothes. And so we have the Ironsworn asset. It has a few abilities in the asset that we will take all 3 of, and that will take my XP from 10 back down to 3. For the abilities for the Ironsworn asset, reads as follows. Once you mark a bond with a leader or a faction, which we did here with the Children of the Light, when you swear an iron vow to serve your leader or faction on a mission, you may re-roll any dice. When you fulfill your vow and mark experience, take +1 experience. The second ability, when you sojourn or make camp in the company of your banner kin, add +1 and take +1 momentum on a hit. And then finally, when you enter the fray bearing your banner, add +1 and take +1 momentum on a hit. When you burn momentum while carrying your banner in combat, take +1 momentum after you reset. Now we don't carry a banner per se, our cloak and tabard is our banner, but we'll still apply these rules as read. So now Ear and Dog will start their journey to Valemark. Dog is still in really bad condition, so he hopes to spend some time in Valemark recovering before venturing out further. Ear offers to stop by his farm first to see what supplies they can gather for the trip. I'll roll the move Resupply, plus Wits, +1 for my bond with Axecrag. That gives me a 7 versus a 7 and a 4, a weak hit. Take +2 supply for -1 momentum. That brings my supply from 3 to 5, and my momentum goes down from 2 to 1. At Ear's homestead, they gather up some much-needed supplies for the journey. They had to be careful not to put his wife and family in need, however, and so had to forage and hunt for the remainder. And thus they are finally ready to begin their trek to Valemark. Now we'll roll the move Follow a Path, plus our 5 supply, +1 for our bond with Axecrag. That gives us a 9 versus a 3 and a 7, a strong hit. +1 momentum for our long arm ability, and +1 momentum for the strong hit. We reach the destination, and it favors us. Our momentum goes from 1 to 3. The journey from Axecrag to Valemark is largely uneventful as the 2 men trudge down the road. Dog senses a bit of standoffishness from Ear, and decides to try to breach that barrier. Ear, you have much more experience than I and the children. Have you seen a rising of darkness like this before? Nay, Dog, I have not. Some say it is because the old ways are slipping, and we're being punished. He says this with his eyes straight forward, never looking toward Dog. You've heard rumors about my grandparents, then. I want you to know that they are true. They are alchemists. Child Edda is aware and has issued them a pardon. I have communed with the Lord of the Light, and I believe the old ways are misguided attempts by men to speak for our God. Dog says this with perhaps a bit more vigor than he really felt in his shaken state. I'm going to go ahead and roll a compel move here, plus heart, which is 2. That gives me an 8 versus a 10 and a 1, a weak hit. Take +1 momentum, which takes me from 3 to 4. They accept our story, but also ask for more. That's all well and good that you've spoken with the Lord of the Light, but that is your word as a man, just the same as it was for our forefathers saying herbalism and alchemy is wrong. Time will tell if the old ways or yours are the true following of the Lord of the Light. I have no ill will toward you or your family. I've never been one for the brandings, but I do think we should do as instructed." He glances over the dog and nods his head in acceptance. The dog is still a little disturbed that his testimony about his experience are not sufficient to change the man's mind. "The truth will come to the light, to be sure," Dog says finally, and they continue the remainder of the journey, mostly in silence. They arrive in Velmark with little fanfare. His grandparents' home was destroyed by the fire, but he knows they have been staying with his old friend Keon, the mystic of Velmark. Keon invites them to stay with him as well, and they spend a few days recuperating and recalling all of Dog's adventures. Once again, I'm going to try to roll the Sojourn move. I'm going to add +2 heart, +1 for my bond with Velmark, +1 from my Ironsworn, which is a 9 versus a 4 and a 9. Another weak hit. Choose one category to improve, +1 more for a bond. I'm going to choose to clear a condition, clear Shaken, and add +1 spirit, which takes my spirit from 0 to 1, and the Shaken condition is removed. I'll go ahead and take the second move as a recover, take +2 spirit. My spirit now goes from 1 to 3. I also get a +1 momentum from my Ironsworn, and my momentum goes from 4 to 5. After spending a few days with friends and family in Velmark, Dog finally begins to feel more like himself. The death of Mel still burned brightly in his mind, but it no longer tormented him day and night. His wounds from the Iron Revenant still pained him, and his grandparents offered wisdom about a specific herb that he might find in his journeys that could help. Dog tried to engage with Air at every opportunity, and he seemed more than happy to commune with those at Velmark. However, there was still a distance between Air and Dog that might never be bridged. Only time would tell. The time quickly passed, and soon they had to say goodbye and start their journey east toward the coast. Hopefully they could discover some additional food sources along the way as well. Dog was happy to hear from the farmers of Velmark that their crops also looked refreshed and that they were seeing massive growth. Keon offered them a coat of messenger pigeons that could be carried on their back, so that they could send messages back to Velmark when new food sources were found nearby. I'm going to mark progress on our refined food sources now. That will take us up to 7 out of 10 progress on that vow. Since this is unknown territory for Dog, we're going to undertake a journey, plus wits, +1 for our bond with Velmark. That gives us an 8. That gives us an 8 versus 9 and a 9. A miss with a negative twist. I'll mark 1 progress on my learn from failures. And I also will roll to see what this negative twist will entail. On the oracles, I rolled monstrous and necropolis. I think this means an undead creature attacks the party as they're leaving Velmark. Kind of like what happened at Axcrag. Dog and Air, refreshed from their time in Velmark, start their journey with their spirits high. They travel several miles down the road when they see a middle-aged woman sitting on the roadside. She notices them with a start, then calls out, "Pardon, can you please provide help? I seem to have hurt myself, running from some wolves down the road." Dog and Air look at each other. Wolves? This close to town? Very unusual, but things have been dark lately. "My name is Nanna. My family are tinkers. We have a wagon train and a camp off the road a bit. I was on my way back there from Velmark when those nasty curs attacked me." "How did you escape the wolves?" Dog asked with a hint of suspicion in his voice. "Old Nanna has a trick or two up her sleeve, and I'm not easy meat for a bunch of dogs." And she cackled with a strange hollowness to her voice. as if the laughter was coming purely from her throat and nowhere else. Dog began to move forward to assist her to her feet, but Ayer placed a hand on his arm. He whispered, "There's something strange about this, dog. I do not trust this woman." Dog looked at his companion, then back at Nanna. She smiled, and something did seem off. He nodded. "I have some healing ability if you need me to look at your injuries." But he made no move to get any closer. "Oh, that would be grand, just grand," she said, her strange smile never wavering. Dog cautiously approached, laying his staff next to him as he squatted to look at her extended ankle. "Where does it hurt?" he asked, keeping an eye on the woman. "Oh, it hurts all across my ankle, dear. I fear I sprained it something awful." Dog put down his pack, taking off the pigeon coat so that he could look inside for some of his herbal poultices. Ayer had a dark look on his face, and Dog didn't know if it was due to the strange woman, or from him offering healing, or maybe both. "Now I'm going to roll Enter the Fray, plus Wits, and Ambush, plus 1 for being Bannersworn. And that gives me a 6, versus a 6 and an 8. Another miss. I'll mark another progress on my Learn from Failures. And combat begins at a disadvantage. Pay the price, plus it is stressful, so I'll take -2 on my spirit, which takes it from 3 to a 1. Nanna is a dangerous adversary of type Thrall. A Thrall is a living person controlled by the will of a powerful undead spirit. The malignant presence can lie dormant for some time, feeding on the suffering of the host and subtly manipulating them to achieve its mysterious and often malevolent ends. Once the host is weakened, the spirit supplants their will entirely. Their drives are that they can endure beyond death, they can coerce and manipulate, and they can stifle the will of the host. Some of the features are their sickly countenance, their glimpses of their true nature, and a clash of personalities. Their tactics: they can reveal their true self and lash out with unnatural strength. They inflict 2 harm. Since I took 2 spirit damage, I'm going to use the move Endure Stress, plus Heart of 2. That gives me a 7, versus a 5 and an 8. Another weak hit. We press on. As Dog was distracted by his pack contents, he didn't notice the woman's hand creeping towards his back. At the last moment, Ayer saw her hand lash out and grab Dog's back, and he shouted a warning. Dog threw himself backward, leaving his staff on the ground. As her hand brushed his back, he could feel parts of his life force being drained. "Fools, how dare you oppose the Lord of Shadow? He will ensure your demise at my hand." Nanna's countenance shifted into a dark rictus of a smile. She stood without effort and began to chant out some dark ritual. Ayer drew his sword and rushed toward the thrall. Dog dove toward his staff to try to arm himself for the combat. I'm going to roll Face Danger, plus Edge of 4. That gives me a 6 versus a 5 and a 9. A weak hit. We succeed, but at a cost. I'll take -1 supply, which takes us from 5 to 4. Dog leapt for his staff and rolled back to his feet with it in hand. Nanna saw his motion and a dark fire sprouted from her hands. Luckily, the blast missed Dog, but it struck the coat of pigeons and they flew from the now opened cage. Ayer raised his sword to strike. Oracle, does Ayer's blow land? 37. No. The woman nimbly stepped aside from the blow of Ayer and cackled. Dog saw this opportunity to attempt to trip the thrall with his staff. I'll roll Secure an Advantage, plus 1 long arm. +4 from my edge, which gives me a 10 versus a 1 and a 6, a strong hit. We gain the initiative and add +1 to my next move, and +1 momentum. That takes me from a 4 to a 5. I'll now roll the move Strike, +4 edge, +1 from my long arm, +1 from my Secure the Advantage move. That gives me a 7 versus a 10 and a 7. A miss. My attack fails. Pay the price, and I roll an 81. Lose support for your cause. I'll also add 1 to my Learn from Failures track, which gives me a 3 out of 10. Dog sweeps out with his staff and stuns the thrall, then moves to hit her with another swing. She miraculously recovers her balance just in time and knocks away his strike with seemingly little effort. Ire notices Dog's ineffectual attack, and it further degrades his faith in Dog's relationship with the Lord of the Light. Nanna cackles again and sends a stream of fire at both men. I'll roll Face Danger plus Edge of 4. That gives me a 10 versus a 3 and a 6. Another strong hit. Take +1 momentum. That brings my momentum from 5 to 6. Oracle. Does Ire dodge as well? 94. Yes. I'll now perform the move Strike, plus my Edge of 4, +1 from my long arm. That gives me a 10 versus a 1 and a 3. Finally, a strong hit. I inflict 1 harm. That moves my combat track with the Thrall up to 2 out of 10 progress. I also gain +1 momentum, which brings it up from 6 to 7. Oracle. Does Ire also land a blow? 55. Yes. He gets +2 harm. His combat track now is at 6 out of 10 progress. Both Dog and Ire are able to dodge under the dark flames, and it presented them with excellent opportunities for counterattacks. The men's weapons strike mighty blows against this dark entity. She wails in pain as both staff and sword make painful wounds on her body. Dog begins a chant of his own, and soon the light from his lord blazes along the lines of his staff. It has a whoosh of flame as he whirls it for another strike on Nanna. I'll roll Strike once again, +1 long arm, +5 light, which brings my light track back down to 0. That's 10 versus a 4 and a 1, another strong hit. I inflict 1 +5 harm, that's 6. My combat track is now a 10 out of 10. I get +1 momentum, so that takes it from a 7 to an 8. I'll now roll the move In the Fight, with 10 progress versus a 2 and a 1. A strong hit. The foe is defeated. The flaming staff of light strikes the thrall in her head, and the flame consumes both the flesh and the spirit as she crumbles into dust, wailing. Dog and Ire stand, their breath heaving. Oracle. Does Ire gain respect for Dog? Very likely. A roll of 58. Yes. Ire isn't a man of many words, but he salutes Dog with his sword respectfully before sheathing the blade. Well, that woman certainly is not much like my Nanna. It took Dog a moment to realize it was a joke. Then he and Ire both burst into laughter. That's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. The next session, we will continue our journey to find food for Velmark and rid the world of the Dark Acorn, or, as some call it, the Dark Horn. See you next time. Bye.